Today, in parts of the country where herds of wild horses still roam, there is a curious yearly ritual. Anywhere the Bureau of Land Management decides wild horses are overpopulating public lands, it sends in the helicopters. Like flying sheepdogs, the aircraft chase bands of horses out of the hills, herding them, coaxing them, scaring them into a funnel-shaped corral. Whether the roundups happen in the heat or in the snow, they follow the same pattern, and they end when cowboys on the ground release what's called a Judas horse, a domestic animal trained to lead its wild disciples into captivity. Watching the drama from the sidelines are contenders in a high plains standoff.
If it was just a little bit warmer, that would...
Wild horse advocates like filmmaker Ginger Catherines are against the culling of the herds.
It doesn't happen very often, but on occasion a horse might come in and might slip on the ice.
Sometimes she confronts the BLM directly.
We want to go on record as saying that we don't think that this roundup ought to start today. We think it's too dangerous, too cold, and too risky. Helicopter roundups are incredibly stressful on the animals. Foals will sometimes literally have their hooves fall off their feet.
On the other side, ranchers paying to graze sheep and cows on public lands. They say unchecked Mustangs are damaging the range, eating grass that ought to be feeding domestic stock.
I have a place in my heart for the wild horse, but there would be a lot of us out of business if we didn't have public lands to graze on.
So how did the situation get so tense that the federal government is sending in herders in helicopters to mediate this standoff? It's a classic tale of unintended consequences. In 1970, the wild horse population had fallen from approximately 1 million at the turn of the century to less than 18,000, victim of a pet food industry hungry for cheap meat.
Get that horse!
The 1961 movie, The Misfits, dramatized the brutality of capturing wild horses, a practice which enraged a growing number of animal lovers.
The Mustang, maybe more than any other animal in America, is a symbol. It means freedom. It means defiance. It means scrappy but noble. In a sense, it means us, right? It is the American. And to have something that we hold in such esteem at the same time, not only abused, but turned into dog food, was just something that people could not deal with in their minds.
Knowing that animals were being hunted down, slaughtered, butchered, and sold as pet food just really burned me up.
Greg Goody was a young boy when he discovered the plight of the Mustang in the pages of an illustrated children's book. Its main character was a tenacious Nevada activist with a catchy nickname.
Velma Johnston has fought for the protection of these animals all her life, and she is known as Wild Horse Annie.
Wild Horse Annie enlisted school children in a national letter-writing campaign. By some accounts, they flooded Congress that year with a volume of letters second only to mail received about the Vietnam War. But Greg Goody didn't need to write letters. His father, Gilbert Goody, held one of Maryland's seats in the U.S. House of Representatives.
I lived with my congressman. I could lobby at the dinner table. I think it probably took a hunger strike.
An 11-year-old boy persuaded his father, a congressman, to introduce a bill to protect wild horses and burros on the western plains. Then the boy, Greg Good of Maryland, appeared today to testify.
And so, a few months later, in December of 1971, the wild horses were saved.
Today, President Nixon signed a bill to make killing them a federal crime.
This largely halted the commercial capture and slaughter of wild horses roaming the West. But it wasn't long before Mustangs were making news again.
It may surprise you to hear there's a surplus of wild horses in what was once the Wild West.
As soon as the law passed, there were essentially more horses than the government knew what to do with. There's only a certain amount of grass out there, especially in the West, and most of it's already spoken for.
Ranchers who rely on public lands for their livestock say what's at stake is their claim on the American West.
I wrote my first wild horse when I was 11. That was in 1952. There are people that think the wild horse is a symbol of the American West. I think every rancher will tell you that we're riding the horses that built the American West.
Garrett says activists have browbeaten the BLM into culling too few Mustangs. Horse activists like Ginger Catherine's see it differently.
If you're wondering why our public lands are overgrazed or degraded, you need to look at the millions of head of livestock, cattle and sheep, that are permitted to graze out here.
If you talk to advocates, spend some time at a roundup with them, eventually they'll talk about how the BLM is in the pocket of big ranchers. And if you talk to the ranchers, if you spend any time at their ranches, they will talk to you about how the BLM's in the pocket of the advocates.
The BLM removes approximately 4,000 horses a year, hoping to find them permanent homes. But periodic exposés over the years reveal that the animals sometimes met a different fate.
NBC News has been told by just about everyone we talked with, a large number of BLM horses likely end up slaughtered.
The BLM sort of binges and purges when it comes to horses. They'll ignore the problem of overpopulation until it gets really bad, and then they'll do something they regret. So in the 80s, they sold a bunch of horses to people that then slaughtered them. And in the 90s, they started doing the same thing again. You know, they would sort of do a don't ask, don't tell type of thing where we're going to sell you the horses, don't slaughter them, we're just never going to check.
The BLM insists it does not knowingly sell horses to so-called kill buyers. And today, the growing number of horses and fewer people willing to adopt them have given rise to what may be the biggest unintended consequence of the 1971 law.
The Bureau of Land Management is probably the largest horse owner in the continental United States, maybe the world.
There are more than 46,000 formerly wild horses and burros living in corrals and long-term holding pastures in the Midwest, eating grass on the government dole. The BLM spends almost $50 million a year to board these captured animals. The Government Accountability Office has warned the ballooning holding cost will overwhelm the program.
I mean, we're talking 40, 50, 60% of our budget is going to just holding and carrying of animals. We're full up. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go with them. I really don't know what to say other than it's not sustainable.
The BLM estimates the number of wild horses on federal rangelands could soon exceed 100,000. Drastic measures like euthanasia provoke a strong public outcry. So the agency treats some horses with birth control and recently added a new program offering up to $1,000 to anyone who adopts a wild horse.
It's unclear what's going to happen when they no longer have the money to expand the system. Do they leave horses on the range and get sued? Do they sell horses to the market and have them slaughtered? Do they euthanize them in some massive, crazy process and just bury them in a big pit? Seriously, when they run out of money, what happens?
It's a problem, and not an easy one to solve.
They really made a mess of it. Are they wild horses when they are in captivity?
It's awful. We have to manage wild horses on the range.
I don't think anybody likes it, but nobody can find a way out of it. The law really did save the wild horse. The question is, what do we do with the horses we saved?